Well, hello everyone. We're back again for another in our series of our fund manager interviews. Delighted today to have James Saw from Superseed with us today. James, do you want to say hello and introduce yourself?
Yes, yeah. So welcome everyone. So I'm James Saw. I'm a principal at Superseed Ventures. Superseed Ventures is a B2B SaaS and AI investment fund. We invest pretty early, so we invest pre-Series A.
Very succinct intro. Thank you very
There
much.
we
I thought you were going to go on more, but no, that's perfect. That's perfect. So, look, we try and have a different theme, a different topic for these fund managers interviews. We don't try and make them kind of product led. They're more kind of thought leadership pieces. So, your topic that you've chosen today is a very small one. Why do startups fail? Wow.
Yeah.
This could be a long video.
Exactly.
No, we'll try and keep
video.
it short and sharp. Yeah, exactly. We'll try and keep it short and sharp. So yeah, give us an overview. Why do startups fail? What's your philosophy here?
Well, I mean, so I'm a mechanical electronics engineer by education. I think it's an affliction that you can't ever get rid of. You're always one. You're a recovering engineer. And so I started. What's that?
A bit like being an accountant.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's kind of it's an education that suited my brain. So my brain's pretty analytical. And when you then look at investing, it's like, well, okay, you can go at it from your own passion or what you believe is right, or you can look at what data is out there. And as a fund, we were kind of, the principle is try and solve the thing that kills the most startups first, and then work down that list. And when you say it like it, that is kind of like, well, yeah, that makes sense. And so, it's a case of trying to focus on what's the most important thing, primary reason why startups fail. And actually, it's poor product market fit, or there's no market need.
Yeah. Oh, this is the classic then. So, an entrepreneur has, in their mind at least, a great idea. This is going to solve the world, but hasn't actually gone out and see if there is a market need for it or a revenue base, et cetera, et cetera.
And so, if you're looking at a problem to solve, as in, if you look at investing as a problem to solve, right? So you've got investors that have entrusted you with capital, and you want to put that capital to work with the aim of making the most money back, and the most advantageous use of that capital. If you've found someone that is solving something that's just super interesting, okay, and you look at it and you're like, oh man, this is so cool. I can't believe they've managed to solve this thing, and it's like great. And then on top of that, you have to go out and convince everybody out there that their whole way of doing business is wrong, that they need to totally rethink the way that they operate. You need to educate them for weeks, months, even potentially years for some industries. You've just taken a problem and you've just got this massive other problem on top of it. So from our perspective, what we thought was that the best way to do it is to solve something that the market already really needs.
Okay.
And if they really need the sort of thing solved, then you don't have to do that massive educational piece on top, which requires a load more capital, a load more risk.
Yeah.
And it kind of rationalizes a bit, I suppose, or reduces the number of risks that you need to take on from an investment perspective.
So I've got to try and challenge you there a little bit. So I was thinking, trying to think of an example while you're talking there. So Uber, for example, you wouldn't necessarily say the taxi industry was broken or the cab industry was broken, but that came in and it took a while for people to understand what Uber was doing. But now, obviously, it's gone super stellar, et cetera, et cetera. So is that what not you're trying to do, or is that an exception to the rule? How do you kind of see that?
So I mean, we've just started with two very simple questions. Why do startups fail, and is Uber good or bad? So Uber's effectively business to micro business, because they're each driver is like a sole trader or wherever they kind of created it so that they didn't have to pay them NI and pension and all these things.
Right. So, at the moment, we'll avoid that for the moment. Just why the company model, we'll stick to that.
Yeah. So they are, in our eyes, that wouldn't be business to business. So we're B2B specialists. So that's our focus. They wouldn't really be B2B. They would be the S of SME, because they are almost individual people. So in that sense, they would be out from our perspective. In terms of what they're doing, I think that people didn't know that they needed the solution, because a cab is pretty good, right? So especially if most of your cabs are used in your local vicinity. So if you live in a small village, you probably get to terms with, it's John, and John is actually an individual person, and if he doesn't work on Thursdays or whatever it is, and they kind of get to that level, or you have to pay £40 to get into town or whatever, and it's kind of like you just get used to that norm. You have to educate all of the drivers that they need to use this service, and you have to educate all of the overarching cab providers, because obviously they sit under umbrellas. Then you have to educate all of the consumers that they can do it in a different way, and that is just a massive problem for us to solve. And from our perspective, it's kind of a good example that they haven't got to market and built a business off raising £5 million. They've had to have hundreds upon hundreds of millions, now probably into billions of pounds, pushed into it to get all those people up to speed. And that's not a market that we would necessarily want to focus on, because it's a very expensive market and a very dangerous market, because you're constantly having to educate, everybody that it's important.
Yeah. So that's an exception to the rule in that sense, and what you guys are doing is very much different to that.
Yeah, we wouldn't. I'll probably get shot by Mads for saying it, but Uber wouldn't be on our hit list in terms of the things that we would look for, I would say anyway, because it doesn't really fit that model. Now, if the model was that you were selling directly to cab companies and you were providing a software for them, then that's a sell that would then be an interesting one. Yeah. But really, they encouraged all of the drivers to kind of circumvent the cab companies so that they could become their own cab companies. Yeah.
So perhaps a better question to ask would be, give us an example of a company in your portfolio and why you selected that one for the portfolio.
You never meant to pick children, are you? Never, who's your favorite kid? But randomly, I suppose an email went through this morning about them. So AI Build, they provide software for the 3D additive manufacturing market. So when you're making large scale 3D printed objects, you get a stack up of errors that makes them very difficult to actually manufacture. And so you've got a technology that's been built, and 3D manufacturing has been around for quite a long time now, but they're hitting a sort of a technical throttle in that without very good operators, you can't make these relatively short run products accurately. So if you wanted a large scale product, a new bonnet for a car or whatever, you're kind of like designing something, you want a model for the car at full scale, you might operate it, you might have done 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 iterations of it before you can get it to actually produce it correctly. You've got all the temperature differences and flow rate differences and humidity and all these things. So you've got a really interesting technology that's being throttled by technology itself. So its inability to be used at scale. And so these guys are providing the software that automatically adjusts the flow rate, all the variables, so that you can produce near perfect products each time. Okay. And so you've got a need there that the industry wants to move to zero waste. So if you think about the long-term future, if you can 3D manufacture at scale, at speed, you've got a manufacturing technique that uses exactly the right amount of plastic or whatever. It's perfect. You can dynamically adjust it. So you can have a single production line that can make all of your parts. You don't have to have big molds for all of them. All this type of sort of, okay, admittedly it's in the future, but unless you can start to solve this problem, that whole market is slow. And so that's an example of a pure play B2B software that's solving something that is at massive scale. And they've gone on to be accepted into the Boeing accelerator. They're working alongside GKN, they've Rolls-Royce, they've got an F1 team. So it's kind of like at the pinnacle of sort of, future tech. Yeah. And then it will filter down into more sort of mass market stuff later. But that's the prime example.
Yeah, and you say 3D printers in the future, but we've just seen during the pandemic, 3D printers are put to use to make ventilators, for example. So it's still coming in that sense. So, so going back to our original kind of question, why startups fail? You said that this one has a product fit. So yeah, I guess can finish a sentence in that sense. In our opinion, AI build won't fail because.
I can't say that for regulatory reasons. I hope that
I said in our opinion
won't fail. So the ability to understand the market is I suppose the first sort of step for us. So when we come across an investment, we look at the standards, the team and the model and all these things, but we spend quite a lot of time and effort on sales. So pre-investment, we will interview existing clients. We will call up new clients. So we introduce the technology to new clients, introduce the technology to potentially like 3, 4, 5-year clients, and potential acquirers. And all of that is to allow us to really test, does the market want the thing that we're putting forward? Will they pay on model? So, do the financials work on model? Meaning, sometimes with software, you find that a company will come to us and they will be at a sort of consulting level. So they're kind of taking on consulting projects to build something, but they haven't, and the idea is they're going to move to a SaaS model, but they haven't quite got there. So on model, meaning that they are pure play SaaS. So if by, through the investment process, you have, I don't know, brought on maybe 10, 15 strong leads for the company, not always, but a very good amount of the time, people have actually sold technology before we've sold licenses before we've even invested. So through our work, we've actually sold. We kind of get this comfort that the market really needs it. The market will pay for it. We've started to work out how they'll scale within those businesses. And also from our perspective, we started to work with that company in a really important and personal way. So when you're on sales calls and you sort of, you're there in the thick of it at the coalface, where actually, selling alongside these guys, you can understand exactly how they work. You get to build that relationship with them. So by the time we invest, we hope that we have built, good, strong relationship, understand the market, understand the sales. And so that for us starts to de-risk it, in our opinion. Caveat.
Oh yeah, appreciate that. Lots of caveats in there. That's an unfair question. So yeah, for any regulators watching, I'll rescind my question. But in terms of, so you mentioned your background, and we spoke at the moment in your introduction. I know the other guys and girls involved at Superseed are all entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. In your opinion, what makes a good VC? There's lots of models out there. Some are entrepreneur-led, some more professional services-led. How do you see it? What makes a good VC?
Well, I'm an entrepreneur and I can't undo that. So I'm always going to think that entrepreneurs are maybe slightly more suited, because if you're a successful entrepreneur, you've kind of been through the run. Yep. You've understood what's needed to happen. You've made some mistakes before. You can learn from them. You're able to bring that knowledge to the table in a way that the other entrepreneur will hopefully receive it in a personal way, and in the sense that they know that you've done the things that they're doing now, maybe not the exact market, maybe not exact sort of technology or whatever, but you've solved those problems yourselves. And so rather than feeling that maybe you're being preached to or something, hopefully we kind of say, well, an example of where you might want to focus is here, because in the not too distant future, you're going to start to need to recruit quite a lot more people. So actually probably investing a bit more time on, your systems internally is worthwhile, because soon you're going to be having a lot more people to manage. And at that point, you don't want to then be slowing down and trying to sort out your processes. So that, I think, is an important thing. In the US, they seem to value it maybe slightly more. I think it's around 60% of VCs have either been in entrepreneurial businesses or built them themselves. In the UK, it was only around 8%.
Right. Okay.
So there's quite a marked difference. I'm not saying what's right or wrong. But we believe that it's right that you're an entrepreneur. So we're all entrepreneurs in the business. So we've all either worked in the company or built our own companies or both. The other sort of key aspect, I suppose, is that within the partner group, they've got 8 exits already. Okay. So understanding how to take that from, but you can't say cigarette paper, sort of napkin plan right the way through to, exiting and being, extremely happy and lucky to some extent, I suppose, is always an element of it. But, very, very competently taking those companies right the way through to exits, an important journey to understand. Otherwise, you're kind of, I don't know, leading a boat on a big charge and you don't know where you're going.
Well, yeah, I guess it's a good point. It's a long and bumpy journey, isn't it? If you've got someone in your team or in your camp who's been there and done it before, then yeah, that's got to be of help, isn't it? And I guess that's the point of VIS money, isn't it? It's exactly that. It's not dumb money, it's smart money. It's not just you as a VC handing over money to these companies, it's you handing over money and then holding their hands, giving them advice, introducing them to people, and just helping them get to that growth and scale that stage, isn't it? So yeah, that's pretty much what it's all about. I was going to ask another question and kind of move on slightly, but see, you're sitting at home there, I can see. I'm sitting at home here. How do you kind of see the future at work? Do you see working from home being a big thing? Is it going to move away kind of post-COVID? How's business world changing? What's kind of your worldview going forward?
So I think, the stats are something in the order of 5%. I think it was pre-COVID, and I think it spiked to around 40%. Obviously you've got effectively everybody that should work from home works from home, etc. But I think it's probably down around 30 to 35% or something as sort of working from home in that sense. So it's a massive change within a very short space of time. There's been big investment. So I was talking to an investment banking friend recently, and they were given money, cash, to just get their house sorted. So, their office said, you have been and will be working from home. You need to make sure that you can operate properly. We don't want you doing it on a shoestring. So you need to install, fiber to the door, decent Wi-Fi, et cetera, And I think there's been investment from companies to get people set up properly. Not absolutely astronomical amounts of money, but, a worthwhile amount that you can actually get set up properly. Yeah. If you're then a big business looking at your overheads and you're kind of sitting there going, well, I pay this person X amount, and for an extra, few percent on that money, I've then got them set up at home. I don't have a massive office to cover. I don't have all their traveling expenses to cover. It's kind of like the experiment has been happening long enough now that there's enough data to say whether it is a right or wrong move from an economics perspective. Will it disappear? No. I always go back to dating and betting in investments. It always is. That's the two things that set me up, that set up in my head in terms of what we're doing. So dating, the ability to get the right people in front of the right thing, so that sort of needs matching. And the betting part is to basically make a calculated and educated guess on what the odds are of what you're doing. So if you're sort of looking at dating moved digital, but never became, you always end up meeting someone, and you always end up sort of, apart from that weird show where it was Married at First Sight, I think my wife was watching. Secretly it was me, obviously. But you still kind of need to meet people, and I think that's an important aspect of it. So I think you will always end up with that. But being able to have sales calls, I'm pretty much back to back all day today with calls. So that's company interviews, that's investors, and I can fit a lot more in my day. So from an efficiency perspective, I think there's a big plus. And the downside, your kid might walk in, and when you were the one working from home and everyone else is in the office, and you were on a call and it and you lost signal, and you suddenly couldn't hear what was happening, you felt massively isolated. Yeah. And your kid walks in and says, "Daddy, can I do whatever?" And you're like, oh, and now everyone's in the same boat. And did you see the Trivago CEO? Maybe it's yesterday even. His son crashed his CNN interview And he brought him in and, you know, just popped him on his knee and you know, basically ignored him, but carried on, right? And
yeah, I guess that's opposed to the classic one, which must be from almost 2 years ago now, where the lady was in and the kid came crashing in and she's trying to push him out. That seems odd now, doesn't it? In kind of what we're happening now.
So I think fundamentally that shifted. I think people will accept that, you know, working from home is effective.
And does that affect your kind of investment philosophy or the companies you're working with in any way, shape, or form?
So if you look at what happened, well, you know, what's happened to Hopin, and, you know, I mean, obviously that's a massive outlier, but there will be sort of spikes of things that will take off because of an immediate need. But in general, the ability for companies to manage data, the abilities for companies to be able to sort of keep on top of performance, mental health, you know, the ability for big data sets to be sort of moved around and manipulated and worked on and things, all that stuff's going to remain, or if not get even more important. So we have a B2B hat on all the time. So we're kind of thinking, well, what does business want to do? And it all sort of stems up to, it all stacks up towards wanting to be able to do more with the same amount of people. I don't generally like it when it's just sort of leads straight to, you know, redundancies or anything, but you know, in essence, they are looking for efficiency, and software is a great way to provide that. So all of that stuff stacks in a positive from our perspective about our investment thesis anyway.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, I think we're pretty much out of time, James, but we picked a huge topic and we've probably scratched the surface in terms of why startups fail. But it's been a great insight to kind of your thoughts and Superseed's thoughts as to how you're investing and your investment philosophy. So thanks very much for sharing that with us. Just to give you the last kind of 30 seconds or so, just want to let us know how we can get in contact with you, where we can find you. Obviously, your open offers are on our website, for example. But yeah, just give us some details about how we can follow up with you. Yeah, perfect. So everything's online. So superseed.com. We've got an event on the 10th, so you can register for that either through LinkedIn or through. Today, stamp it. We're 26th of February today, so that's 10th of March, is it? 10th of March, yeah, that's the next event. And then all of the investment materials are available online, so you can register for free and see all the materials there, or you can email funds@superseed.com or myself, James@superseed.com. So feel free to reach out to any of us, and yeah, happy to answer any questions you've got. Lovely job. Thank you very much. James Sawyer from Superseed. Thank you very much. Take care. Thank you. Cheers.